For the past 2 weeks, we have been taking a close look at a series of talks given by St. John Paul II that have come to be known as the Theology of the Body. This is a part of a series of homilies that will most likely take us up until the end of October. The Theology of the Body is perhaps the most significant teaching given to us by a pope within the last century or so. It takes a Catholic look at the human person, the human body, our relationships, our sexuality, and the sacrament of marriage. And all of this is based off of what God has revealed to us in the scriptures. In the first of these homilies, a couple of weeks ago, we did sort of an introduction to the topic. And last week we examined Genesis chapters 1 and 2, in which we discussed the first two concepts of the theology of the body introduced by St. John Paul II. And those are original solitude and original unity. And all these concepts that we'll be talking about, they sort of build upon one another. So if you missed those homilies, I would highly encourage you to catch up on my YouTube channel. Just search my name. We're almost ready to move on to chapter 3 of Genesis, but first we have to wrap up chapter 2, the very last verse of chapter 2, verse 25. It says this: "The man and his wife were both naked, yet they felt no shame." This is the next concept that John Paul II introduces to us, called original nakedness. And he says that original nakedness is key to understanding what life was like in the beginning. If you remember, the entire basis for John Paul II's theology of the body is the question that the Pharisees ask of Jesus. Why did Moses command us to write a bill of divorce and dismiss our wife? Jesus responds, "Because of the hardness of your hearts, he wrote you this command. But in the beginning, it was not so." And here, John Paul II, this is how he describes what the beginning that Jesus is talking about was like. The man and his wife were both naked, yet they felt no shame. Without this verse, this last verse of chapter 2 of Genesis, we wouldn't really know what life was like in the beginning. They're naked, yet they felt no shame means that Adam and Eve were defenseless, but not defensive. All that Eve sees in Adam's eyes is a gaze of pure love. And all that Adam sees in Eve's eyes is pure love returned. They don't have to hide. They have nothing to hide. They feel no shame. They experience complete unity, the original unity. So when Jesus says, "In the beginning it was not so," Moses allowed you to divorce your wives because of your hardness of hearts, what he's describing is this, the original unity, the original nakedness. So what you were made for, how God made you originally, his original plan, is that you would be able to stand in front of another with complete vulnerability and at the same time with complete fearlessness. To not be defensive. John Paul II says this: "The fact that they were not ashamed means that the woman was not an object for the man, nor him for her. They see and they know each other, in fact, with all the peace of the interior gaze." Eve knows this simply by looking at Adam. I am someone worth dying for. That is the truth. You are someone worth laying down one's life for. That is God's original plan. But now we have to turn to chapter 3 of Genesis and see how original unity and original nakedness was broken, and how we arrived at the reason that Moses allowed a man to write a bill of divorce, and that is our hardness of heart. Now the serpent was the most cunning of all the wild animals the Lord God had made. And he asked the woman, "Did God really say, 'You shall not eat from any of the trees in the garden'?" Sometimes we read the word serpent and we imagine, a regular snake. And we see that in, religious artwork, things like that. It's just an ordinary snake. But the Hebrew word for serpent is nehash, which does not just mean a snake. It can, but more often in the Bible it's used. Nahash is a word that means leviathan or sea monster, or most commonly, dragon. And that sort of changes how we picture this scene playing out. Now, the dragon was the most cunning of all the animals. When we picture a dragon in this scene, we realize that not only is this an attack on Eve's trust in God. Did God really tell you this? It's also an attack on Eve herself. She is in danger. Did God really say you shall not eat from any of the trees in the garden? The woman answered the dragon, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. It is only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, you shall not eat it or even touch it, or else you will die. But the dragon said to the woman, you certainly will not die. God knows well that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods who know good and evil. Now, in that last verse there, the dragon is attacking the very core of who Eve is. God knows well that when you eat it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods. In other words, the devil is saying to Eve, God doesn't want you to be like him. But Eve already is. She's made in his image. She is like God. That is who she is. And so St. John Paul II says that this temptation by the devil was an attack on God's fatherhood. The serpent questions whether or not God is a good father. Well, if he's keeping this from you, how can you trust him? And this is the number one temptation underneath every single temptation that you have ever faced. That is the wound that we all share. Can I trust God, or should I do what I think is right? All sin is the decision to put ourselves and our decisions ahead of God. In short, all sin is simply not trusting God. Let's continue with the story. The woman saw that the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eyes, and the tree was desirable for gaining wisdom. So it tastes good, it looks good, it seems to be good. The only reason why I can't eat this is because God is telling me not to. So do I trust that? So she took some of its fruit and ate it, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Now, this is a piece that we often miss when we're reading this story. I'm going to repeat it. So she took some of the fruit and ate it, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her. The whole time that this serpent, this dragon thing, is tempting Eve, Adam is there with her. He's right there. What does he do? He doesn't do anything. What does he say? He doesn't say anything. Adam was put there to cultivate and to care for the garden and everything in it. And as I said last week, the Hebrew word that means to care for also means to guard, to protect. He was put in the garden to protect Eve. And instead, he leaves her vulnerable for the first time. The original sin wasn't Eve taking the apple. It was Adam not protecting Eve. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made loincloths for themselves. So for the first time they realized that, I've got to do something to protect myself. Notice it says they made loincloths for themselves, so they're not protecting themselves from the weather or from predators. They are protecting the very parts of themselves that are different from each other. I have to protect the part of me that makes me different than you, male from female. And Adam sees something in Eve that he's never seen before, and he comes across the lie which afflicts every man ever since him. And that lie is that we as men, as individual men, we don't have what it takes. The lie that says that you're not a man, that you're not competent. The lie that says you need a Cadillac, not a Chevy. The lie that comes out in different ways, but it's always the same, that you're not good enough, that you're not man enough, that you'll never be better, that you don't deserve to be better, that you are weak, that you are flawed. You should just give in. You should just give up. And the lie that comes against every woman that has ever lived is similar, but it's different. And that lie is, you're not worth loving as you are right now. well, Father, I know that I'm worth loving. That's not what I said. I said, you're not worth loving as I am right now. If I were just a little bit more, if I were just a little bit prettier or skinnier or funnier or more popular, then I would be just a little bit more worth loving. Eve sees something in Adam's eyes that she's never seen before, that unfortunately women see every day now. Assessment, objectification, use. Men no longer look to guard, we are tempted to use. The beauty of the female body is now a temptation, and so of course she covers up. And here we arrive at the fourth major concept of the theology of the body, and that is something that St. John Paul II calls shame. The body and gender difference are now blamed for the rupture that's caused by sin. Now we know that the body is not at fault. Your body isn't bad. It's our heart that is now hardened. It is this original sin that gives us the desire to use someone else for our own purposes, to use someone else's body for our own purposes or our own pleasure. And as a result, we need to cover up our bodies to protect ourselves from others' willingness to use them. So I, as a man, have to compensate by thinking that I have to be good enough, and she has to compensate because she feels like she needs to be something different in order to be loved. And that's what St. John Paul II means by shame. Shame means I have to cover up because I don't want you to see what I'm ashamed of. I have to cover up because I don't want you to see where I'm wounded. I have to cover up because I don't want you to see me. And John Paul II says that shame has a twofold meaning. Shame is both a consequence of original sin, and it's also a remedy of original sin, or at least a response to original sin. So number one, shame indicates the threat to the value of the person. And number two, at the same time, shame preserves the value of that person in an interior way. Shame is not, it's our natural response to protect ourselves. So there's a good side to shame. Another way to think about shame is that it is, number one, I experience shame and I don't want to be seen. I have to protect myself. And number two, that I am worth protecting. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel shame. So does this mean that we should try to get to a point in our lives where we never feel shame, where we can go around naked? Of course not. We can't put the sin genie back into the bottle. And so a world of shamelessness is not a good thing. Shame is a result of sin, but it is a necessary result of sin. We feel shame so that we know when to guard ourselves. And that's because you are worth protecting. Shame is our natural defense mechanism because you are worth loving correctly, not to be seen as an object. So original nakedness and original unity come to an end with the first sin. And the result of all of this is that now, as man and woman, we see each other differently, and so we have to protect ourselves from one another. And that's what Adam and Eve do immediately when they clothe themselves with loincloths. And when asked where Adam got the fruit, well, let's listen to his words. The woman who you put here with me gave me the fruit, so I ate it. He's not only blaming Eve, he's blaming God who created Eve for him. The woman who you put here with me. And when questioned, Eve blames God again with his creation. The serpent tricked me, so I ate it. Now, what is God's response to all of this? Well, if we fast forward from the Garden of Eden, a few millennia later to the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus is arrested, we see the contrast. Where Adam allowed his bride Eve to be swayed by the devil when he was supposed to be there to guard her, he instead blames her. And Jesus does the opposite. Rather than stand aside as Adam did, Jesus stands in the way. He gives himself up. He sacrifices himself for his bride, the church. And so all we have to do when we're answering the question of original sin and original shame All we have to do is look at the crucifix and realize that that is the answer. So ladies, if you feel that you're not worth loving as you are at this moment, if you feel that you need to change something about yourself in order to be loved better, look at the crucifix. He chose you, sins and all, no change necessary. God proves that his love for you is unconditional and that you are worth loving as you are right now. And men, if you feel that you don't measure up, if you feel that you're weak and inadequate, that you're a slave to your sin, that your flaws and temptations make you feel like less than a man, look at the cross. St. Paul says that men are to love their wives as Christ loved the church, and that's how Christ loved the church. And that is his command to us. He is saying to us, men, love like that. You have what it takes. I believe in you. I trust you. And that's why Jesus says in today's gospel, whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. The cross is the remedy for shame. The cross is the remedy for our hardness of heart. And it's not just because Jesus died on the cross to ransom us from sin. It's because Jesus left us room to carry our own cross. Jesus left us room to be crucified next to him, like the good thief. Which means that as men, we can overcome our feelings of inadequacy when we lay our lives down for them. And ladies, you are good enough, you are worth dying for. And when you turn to the cross, both male and female, you realize that you already have what it takes to be loved, that God already does trust you. What Jesus has done on the cross is that he has begun to untwist what was twisted in our hearts by sin. He begins to soften our hardness of heart.